There's 4 of us. 1 of us is online. And our projects are called Traces, Biochrome, and Flesh. And we basically wanted to answer the 3 challenges proposed by the Experimental Photo Festival. If you don't remember, the challenges are number 1, combine techniques to create a new one. Number 2 is find a message and narrative in your work. And number 3 is work collectively. So I will start with my project, which is called Traces.
This is one. And
Thank
now you can scroll, and when you finish this one. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so my project is a portraits project. I've been working for the last year or so, taking portraits of models and people, and I finally created a book, sort of summarizes it. I will talk about that, and then also I want to talk about how I want to take this research further. So I'll talk about some my interests and the themes in the projects. I'll talk about the step process that I use to combine techniques and create a new one. I'll mention some limitation and the evolution of the project and where I want to take it further, and some of the experimentation that I came up with from this project. So some of the interests that some of my interests are darkroom art and solarization, and some of the big names you probably already know that have been playing with those things before. And I love surreal images and experimenting in the darkroom with introducing light and different chemistry and changing the image deliberately in the darkroom process. So I'm going to go back and talk a little bit about my themes before I show you the work. It's basically, I wanted to explore the concepts of changes and changes in identity and changes in the body. So we are a different person every day, every different day, and maybe even every minute if we decide to. Sort of we can reinvent our identity anytime. And also our cells regenerate and die all the time. And we're sort of always healing and dying simultaneously. And kind of the only constant thing in our life is basically change. So nothing remains of us except for what we hold on to, which is what I call traces. And dissolving and destroying the image further shows that there is impermanence, and there's only some traces remain when we're gone. I'm not able to click. I can't click. Oh, it's slow, but it's clicking. Now I have to go back to the second slide. Okay, hopefully it will stop now. So once it will load, this is the step process that I'm using. You can see that the top image is basically the original image that I take with my camera. It's a black and white portrait. So it's a black and white negative, and then I print from that using sort of a chemogram technique. Actually, all these images are printed on darkroom paper using an inkjet printer. And then sometimes I fix it partially, but in the first 2 images, I don't even think I use the fixer. It's all just development process. And then I introduce sunlight, direct sunlight, to create these colors. And also you can see in the second image that I'm completely dissolving sort of the person in it, and it's just the trace that remains from it. Another sort of process where I combine many different techniques is I used a regular negative, and then I added some dye to it, like food coloring basically. And I realized that even though it's like a normal color to me, but when you scan it with the black and white contrast, it creates kind of like a neon color, which I really liked. So I printed from that sort of altered negative 2 different prints, one on black and white darkroom paper and one on color darkroom paper, and also developed it with black and white chemistry. And the last image is C41. So I used that to play around with color darkroom paper. This is another example where I used just the development and the direct sunlight and to create this sort of effect. And also, actually, this is a chemiground process because I used resist to sort of make this dissolving effect. Another example of the process is I make a collage inside the darkroom. So using the enlarger to make a collage where I process only part of it and then mask the other part of it. And or I change the size of the image while one side of it is one size and the other side is a different size. And the third image, so the one to the bottom left, is manipulation during the scanning, which creates this weird colorful glitch effect, which I kind of liked. So here's another example showing the original image and also used masking to create a collage effect inside the darkroom. So this is, each image is a one paper. It's not really a collage, but it's like an in-camera collage, sort of. Here's my experimentation with solarization. So, I develop a little bit of the image, just a partial, and then I take it out into the light and then develop it afterwards. And you get these running effects if you only do it if you do it incompletely. And the solarization, you can see the sort of the inverse of the black versus white. So I love playing around with that. Here's some more darkroom experiments where I do partial development and partial fixing on the left, and then I take it out into the bright sunlight to sort of leave the rest to the light. And it's a cool process because it continues to change if it continues to stay outside. And you can't really preserve the outside of it, but I did want to preserve the figure and the face to some extent. And then the one on the right is there's no fixer at all. It's just the ink from the inkjet printer acts as a resist to sort of preserve the image. And the coloring is all from direct sunlight. Similarly here, I did some part of this image in the dark room where I did some developing and some fixing. And on the right, I did some solarization during the development process. And then the rest was done by the sun, basically. Here's a different lighting environment. So on the one on the right is direct sunlight, during the daytime. And the one on the left is just room light. So it's a little bit more muted and cold, which I liked. So taking my research further, I really like experimental cinema and animation. So I've been playing around in 3D software to alter the image even further. So the colorful images are actually black and white originally, but in the 3D software, I created this object which acts as a lens. It's basically a glass object. So it's like an icosphere distorted with distorted proportions. So it has edges, and I made it into a glass. And so that when the light shines through it, it creates these aberrations like refraction effects. So that's why it's so colorful. And I animated to move it, sort of, and so it creates this weird glitch effect. So I'm going to play around with that further. and hopefully make some cool animations and work more with models collaboratively to create little videos. Another sort of animation I make with portraits is, this is just a negative that's been processed step by step. First, I take just a regular scan of the image, and then I start scratching it and destroying it step by step and scanning it in the process. So you can see, like, I started scratching the head and then drawing some wings, and finally I started burning the negative. So the head is burned towards the end, almost entirely transforming the image. I don't know if we can actually view it right now. Let me see. I think that's my end slide, but I'm going to try to play the video now, if I can. I think it's stuck. I'm just going to exit out of the slide because I think I only have one slide remaining and try to play the video. Oh, you saw it briefly. Oh no, I can't do anything. So stop the slide and play the video that we done. Okay.
Stop sharing.
Non, normalement non, mais peut-être que c'est mieux parce que je pense qu'on a qu'à.
This is one, but maybe it's downloaded already. Oh yeah, close that one.
Is this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's okay. Yeah, no problem. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna make it full screen, and now I'm gonna show you.
Tu es en train de minuter cette conférence ou pas du tout?
Après les règles, c'est propre. Is this one? No, we share it. Okay. And when you want,
Yeah, I can do.
is this one? No.
Yeah, I think you just go here. Okay, cool. Thank you. So this is the video that basically it's a series of negatives put together and animated. Let's hope it plays right now. Yeah, okay. How do you stop it now? Okay. Okay, so yeah, that concludes my presentation of this project, and I have this book if you want to see the pieces further closer, and I will hand the mic to the rest of our crew here.
Online. She wants to go before us, Renata. She's online, and then we go last.
Okay, no problem.
I think we can.
Okay.
Non, mais peut-être Renata. Il faudra qu'on t'entende. J'ai dit que Renata peut passer avant.
Ouais, je trouve ça bien. Ça crée
Renata can do.
Tu comptes vraiment faire un show sur moi. J'imagine bon à chez des. Comment je vais faire?
So, Renata, I think it's your turn. Is that okay?
Yes, hello. So in Poland, where I came from, they say, oh, sorry, can you hear me properly? Because I'm getting a background noise.
Can you try to speak again? Because I think we didn't understand.
Okay, maybe let's try if...
It's good now, it's good, it's perfect. Go ahead, yeah.
Oh, wonderful, thank you. So in Poland, where I came from, they say, im dalej w las, tym więcej drzew, which literally means the further into the forest, the more trees you see. And I feel that about exactly like that about my two passions, which are plants and photography. So let me show you how. At the beginning, when I physically combined the two passions of mine together about 18 years ago, I could only see a few trees. And then gradually, I went deeper and deeper and deeper. And as I go further into the subject, into my process, I feel like I go deeper into a forest. And now I'm literally surrounded by a forest. Today, I will show you examples of my earlier work, what a biochrome is, and some work in progress from my current art residency at Pinabara, which is a spectacular destination, by the way, in the mountains, surrounded by Lamington National Park, which is a World Heritage listed rainforest with some very unique plants that are related to the Gondwana flora from millions of years ago. So when I combined the two passions of mine, the technique presented itself, because once I fused nature, and in my case, plants and analog photographic materials, it turned into an experiment after experiment after experiment to find out and fine-tune the process and technique that I call the biochrome. Bio because of natural and organic materials, and chrome because mostly I use color photographic materials. So in a dictionary, the word biochrome actually means color derived from either a plant or an animal, so a natural pigment. But for me, I adopted the name, the term biochrome, for my own work in my process. And it is actually an image that I create through the biochrome process, and also a process that I based on fusing organic and photographic materials over a period of time, and art science research, and also it is a collaboration with nature. So gradually, this became the foundation of my art practice. So the art and science of research within that allows me to help people and myself to connect with nature through biochrome art. This is a Vinogradsky column. It is actually a science lab experiment which demonstrates self-sufficient ecosystems where a color is an indicator of change. So over a period of time, a column of water, which could be just water from a dam, and for example, with some newspaper clippings, some clothes, will allow microbes to grow over time and will actually change into this self-sustaining system, showing microbes in their specific microsites, their shapes, colors, textures. So imagine now that this combined with photographic materials, like for example, analog photographic paper, this actually makes a big difference and allows the microbes and the process go actually through the paper over time. So this is how the Biochrome process is created and allows the decay, the process of decomposition, transform both of the materials, organic and photographic, through that decay process. These images here are created by that process, and these are just various examples throughout the years that I was working on different plants, on different photographic materials. So it could be paper, it could be photographic, different types of film, and specifically looking at different plants and different environments. So depending where I was living or working at the time. This image shows you a biochrome of Secuvium mushroom, which is on the left-hand side, and then also a close-up of that image of just the fragments to show you what actually happens during the several weeks of decomposition, of this transformation of materials together. So Secuvium is one of healing plants that grows over sand dunes in southeast Queensland and was part of my PhD research on medicinal plants on Minjerribah, North Stradbroke Island, with Kondamuka people there who are the custodians of that land. So most projects use natural process of microorganic activities, so chemical and biological reactions, mainly camera-less analog process and digital process, and then time-lapse videos. So the only process using a camera in my practice is actually digital photographs to create time-lapse videos of the Biochrome process. And this is an image, well, 3 images of 3 different stages of the Biochrome process in one of the time lapses of the same plant, actually, in a different setup. So you have, so the time lapse was created over 40 days, and you can see the whole process within less than a couple of minutes, which you can actually watch on my website. So all this is about learning and sharing. So the deeper I go into the, the forest, the more trees I see and more opportunities and amazing things that are possible. I love plants and I want to work with them and learn about them, and each specific place I live or work gives me very different opportunity to slowly learn about the plants and share that with people through that art, nature, science research. So the important narratives in my work are the connection to nature, for example, through this work, which comforts the feeling of belonging, and especially it's challenging after migration, and allows me to learn about nature around me and around my new home, for example. So first it was through my garden, then through botanic gardens with various native plants, and also medicinal plants on the island that I mentioned before. I created some biochromes of plants that I was growing with in Poland, and they were mainly medicinal plants, and a couple of them are actually in one of the exhibitions in the festival. So it is about learning and sharing, And now by getting into the forest literally and learning about those unique plants which have lineage to Gondwana, I feel quite privileged to be able to do that. And also I'm doing this through 1 year residency, which allows me to go back to those plants through different seasons as well. So let me take you into the rainforest for a very short time. These are just some images of the beautiful place that this residency allows me to walk and be able to spend a lot of time in. And in fact, it is the land of the Yagambeh language group people. And I'd like to pay my respects to the custodians of those lands, elders emerging, past and present. And let me show you a special tree, a special plant. This is Antarctic beech. That actually is a very special tree with the lineage to Gondwana plants. And it is very special to many people. People are very attached to it and have a lot of feeling and connection to it. And this tree also, but besides other plants that I collect, grows on the Binabara land that is surrounded by the national park. So that therefore it allows me to actually work with those plants in a biochrome process. And this is one of the biochromes created from that plant. So the leaves are collected and put together with photographic emulsion over time. Then there is scanning, drying, scanning, and then again it becomes a digital file and also a digital print. Another special plant that is Gondwana lineage plant is orange stone, and it actually has very little berries that are edible. And as you can see on the right-hand side, it's actually a new time lapse that is in progress as we speak. So it's just kind of in process at the moment. So besides the fact that I really like focusing on specific plants and also on and consulting with traditional custodians when possible and experts in plants, I also like the fact that I can recycle photographic materials, so to have more sustainable art practice, and also share that those plants, there's knowledge and significance about them with audiences. And in addition to that, I also love collaborations. So this project here, Yimbali, Listening is a Form of Healing, was interdisciplinary collaboration where actually eco-acoustic artists recorded these minute sounds of the biochrome process as the plants were decaying and the materials were transforming each other over time. And then also we had a composer and a poet and also a storyline by elders from Mitchell, so the Gangri elders, about this particular healing plant. So these are just a few images, and again, you can watch the video on the website. So then also I work with homeowners and corporate leaders, helping them to create harmonious environments for them, for their households, for employees and visitors, to help them to connect with nature through my biochrome art. And whether it is for building foundation for our art and science program at Pinabara, right in the middle of the forest, or bringing nature to art, like through this, for example, art on glass walls in a university building. And also, as we were going to talk about the future, I think future is very exciting in this experimental world. And this, for example, is a recent collaboration called Organic Rhythms between a composer who actually sonified some of the video that a Biochrome actually time lapse to that help him to generate sound, and a video artist also included lots of interesting transitions and effects for the video. So I'm always open to opportunities for future experiments, collaborations, and learning along the way with fascinating possibilities. So I'm very excited to see everybody's work during this festival. And well, thank you very much for your attention.
Do you have question maybe for Renata when she's online? Maybe, I don't know. Before we move. It's not in anymore. It used to be in Galvan. No. Yes, yeah. This one. Sorry. Yeah. No. This is here. It's okay. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, so hi everybody. So we are working duo. So on that project. So I'm Anne, and Daniela is on my left. And so just to tell you a bit, because we feel a bit like outsiders in this festival, because we experiment more on the way we approach things rather than on the process somehow. So just to tell you a bit first about ourselves. So our product is called Share. It means flesh. So basically, I'm a photographer, plastician photographer. I published a book in 2019, which is called The Eye of the Cyclops. Basically, the book won a few awards. It's a book about my conception of beauty, because I did all my career in beauty in London, in New York, and actually Daniela comes from fashion. So for us, basically, the visual is it always goes first, always before the process is what we want to achieve. And then we think of the process. So first was quite funny, because we noticed that since we arrived, like a lot of people are thinking about the process, and then maybe the image comes afterwards. And actually for myself, it's totally the opposite. That's why I changed the order of the question, because the idea always comes first. And actually, I did a TEDx talk in Oxford about that, which is why have an analogical orgasm, because I think that ideas are always recycled from something else, from whatever is your source of inspiration. So the book was about my conception of beauty, in the sense that basically it was inspired by Plato, the philosopher, because, for Greek philosopher, beauty used to be truth, actually. And right now, if you look basically at the fashion magazine and the glossies, it's not so much about truth anymore if you're on TikTok, on Instagram, and so on. So I wanted to go back to the roots of beauty. What is beauty? And for me, beauty is it's an Oscar Wilde quote, actually. It's in the eye of the beholder. So in that case, myself, because I'm holding the camera. And you will see a few images of my work just after. So basically, there's no process so much. I don't retouch any images. So sometimes I do create lens, which I put in front of my camera. But basically, there's not a lot of manipulation in my photographic work. So nothing is retouched. But for instance, if you take the image on the on the right. The color is not so good on the screen, so you can check the book after downstairs. But basically, it's typical of what I call thinking of the idea and the concept first. Actually, every time I'm invited to a party, people normally buy flowers or bring a bunch of flowers, and I always take whatever is in my fridge and I bring it as a gift. So that's just like a picture of that. So basically, what happened about this project, and maybe then I'm going to pass on the mic to Daniela, is the fact that, so Daniela, she will introduce herself, but she's drawing. And basically what we had as a common interest is really flesh and looking at things very, very up close, which was for us a way to experiment on the medium of photography. Because what for me is extremely frustrating sometimes is the fact that basically photographs are flat, and I really wanted to experiment on the surface of the medium and to try to challenge that. And that's why we came up to how close can you get to a topic, how far can you get from it, what are like the definition you can get with an image and so on. So I think our project is a lot about reinventing the surface of the medium. And now I let Daniela talk.
Okay, I'm an artist and I'm also a fashion designer. So I started with art. My mediums are painting and drawing, but I always work from photographic images and being very much inspired by fashion. I use this kind of images and my personal images to create something new. And I work a lot with collage, and I like to make first, well, the collage and then draw after the collage that I did. I am much more into figurative drawing, body and sexuality. These are my main interests. And what I like to do is to reproduce this idea of the obsession that I have with fashion images. I reproduce them where I'm drawing, especially when I choose to draw with charcoal, which is a very demanding medium. I like this idea of being like obsessed with what I'm doing it in a figurative way and an hyper realistic way makes me go into the image in a way that abstraction doesn't allow it. You know, you are much more far from it than close to it when you are doing a very, very precise drawing. So to go into our collaboration, the idea was how can I go closer, much more closer into the image than I used to do with just my own work. I'm not like really looking closer to an image when I'm reproducing that. I'm just like looking closer to my drawing. And this collaboration makes me look closer to the image. So now maybe we can show.
So this is McLuhan. I'm sure you know this very famous quote, "The medium is the message." Of course, he said it about television, but for me, it's about, okay, the photographic image is the message. So what message do we want to convey? And as Daniela perfectly explained, we really wanted to challenge, and you will see the work when you look at this specific project, especially actually on Instagram. Unfortunately, I mean, it was published in the magazine and it's much better, and you can see it exhibited at the IEFC. But basically, people don't know anymore because she's so talented, of course, what is the picture and what is the drawing. You don't know, and we like a lot this ambiguity. We both have work that is quite ambiguous. You don't really know, and we like always to be on the verge. And I think it's very interesting to look at something and to not to know anymore. And I think it's also, of course, a kind of questioning on the medium of photography. You know, what does it mean? What is the medium therefore? So just to explain a bit. So I take the picture, but still in my work, there's always like layers of meaning. This looks like beautiful flowers. Actually, the flowers that I take are only flowers that I take on graves. So just give you an idea. I created my own filter. Then the second step, so we print the image, and then I will let Daniela speak, but the idea is to tear the picture apart. But that step number two is insane, because of course there are so many ways you can tear the image apart. Actually, she's the expert of
I'm the tearer.
because she's much more precise, and yeah, she's much more precise, because like we started that for instance, and just to explain to you that I started also to think, we could do it like impressionist, and we could do thousands of little pieces, and then she could recreate all that.
Yeah, of course. And I would go crazy, of course. Not just tearing them, but then drawing the tears and all the.
So yeah, so then okay, I just do the images. I had this idea of the tearing apart, and then Daniela starts to do this.
So we have these images here in color as an example, but from the beginning, we have decided to do it in black and white, and then 2 months after that, we said, what about doing in color? So I did this test with color. So this is oil painting, and we tear the picture, and the direction of the tearing changes everything, because I am working for the first time with photographic paper. I work with a lot of different papers, but this is the first time that I'm working on a photographic paper, which reacts differently to the materials than regular fine art paper. So when I tear it from one side, I have this tear that is very present. But if I turn the page, the tear is not present at all, and so it can be much more subtle. And in the beginning, we said to ourselves, no, it's good to have this really like the rip in the middle, like with the white part of the paper. And then I did some tests. I said, but I like this idea of not seeing exactly where the tear is. And so if you have a black and white drawing and a picture together, you can be a bit confused. With the colors, you're not confused. It's immediately you have red here and you have a black and white there, and say, there's something there, it's a drawing. So this is the black and white. So Anne took this picture. This is my favorite. So I started it with this one, and I was like pushing Anne to do more black and white drawings. I think they are, in a way, I love color, but I think in a way they are stronger. And so I did the tear in the picture and reproducing the picture. The interesting part of it for me, it's because I understood a lot of things about the nuance, the subtleties of the printing a picture, printing a photograph, because I have a black charcoal in my hands, and I can achieve different shades of gray with it, but I cannot achieve something like, the printing is slightly more magenta than blue, So like seeing these differences to start, I cannot make a kind of a filter. Yes, of course, I could take aquarelle and just like, but it was not the point. So then this obsessive side of doing something very realistic, drawing hair. It's not very easy. and I chose to use the charcoal because I can be very precise when I'm very patient. But also I chose the charcoal because it can be very subtle about all the other effects of shadow and light that we can achieve at the end to match all this matter of lighting in the picture, in the photography.
Actually, I don't want to do that too much, but the colors are much better on the screen. So just to say, so of course this is my picture, and so here it's basically on the left here my picture, and this is Daniela's. So it's hard to show this work like that, but you can see I was sure I was going to do that. Sorry, I messed it.
You messed everything.
No, it's okay. Yeah. So if you see between the first one and the last one.
Well, I have to tell you that they are A4 drawings, so the size is important here because for the exhibition, We have a much bigger print. We have a print of the work because we have the photography from one side, and then we have the drawing. They are together. And if you see the originals, of course, you approach and you can see. But if you just print them, scan and print them, you don't see it anymore. And but it was fine because it's difficult to make it bigger and not losing the quality of the drawing and the quality of the image too.
Thank you, Daniela.
Not just the drawing. So
The collaboration.
do you want me to read? When you talk, you're only repeating what you already know. But if you listen, you may learn something new. So I can start. It was amazing. It was the first time that I was collaborating with someone like that, like closer. And of course, as I told you, I always work from photographic images, but not from photographic images from friends of mine. We are friends. I know Anne's work for a long time now, and we have a lot of things in common, but I think our images are very much different. How can we put them together and create something that would be like, how can I say that? Okay, no, okay is not a good word. Okay for me and for her, and this is very important because you can do something from your side and be very happy with what you do, the other two, but when you put the things together, they just don't work as you imagine when you start doing the project. And in fact, for me, it was a big surprise because it was exciting to going, as I was telling in the beginning, much more inside her pictures, her images, and the way that she sees things, and then the way that I see things. So I was really trying to put myself in her shoes, which was great because it allows me to not be very much into my own world and to be more also precise, not precise in the drawing, but precise in the process of doing something that it's mine, but it's not entirely mine. It belongs to the other two. So precise to respect her work. Voila, from my side.
I've got nothing to hide from you. For me, I'm at the beginning of the process, so it's a bit easier, you know. But for me, it was super interesting because she was calling me, telling me, "Oh, you know, this is art," and I didn't care because I felt I did my picture, I did my job, you know. So it's the truth. I have to be honest, you know. No, I think what was super interesting is the fact that. Sometimes when you are an artist and you have your own obsession and your own ways of doing things, it's very nice actually, and I felt that the collaboration actually enhanced my work because you know now we have quite a lot of pictures. We've chosen this theme, which is quite precise, which is flesh. We tried some pictures that are not working. So now I'm challenged on taking the next pictures in a way that make the group of work quite consistent. Also, we have something in common, at least for me, my work has been censored quite many times. So we were very happy actually, and we thank the festival that we could be exhibited here because it's not always easy. And so I think I felt through the collaboration, my work became bigger, you know, and I can explore other things with other probably. I mean, Daniela is a drawer, but I've got a piece that I'm doing more with sound now, so it expands my universe. So I grew as an artist, and I think it's nice. So just to conclude, we're going to show you a few more. So we also we played basically with that. So it's black and white, but of course you see the picture because obviously I put a filter. Again, it's part of the exploration. Black and white, that was also interesting. As you see, sometimes we do black and white on black and black and white on black and white, and sometimes with a filter. For me, that also was super interesting, is that I tend to use quite a lot of color. Like in my first book, the second that's going to be released is a bit darker actually. But also through the collaboration, it made me want to do more black and white because I think we discovered through the process that the blurring of the images is even more confounding when it's on black and white. You really don't see the drawing and the image anymore. And for instance, we felt that the one at the center, we don't like it, so we discarded it just to show you also a bit the thought process we had. Whereas the here, okay, the over imposing of the picture and the drawing is not done very properly, but because we scan it quite quickly, we can do that better. But we think it's much more hyper real, as Daniela would say. So we are going to develop more this type of work. And then you see the tattoo on the right. And then that also, just to show you, just maybe to conclude, and then Daniela will add a word, of course, about the tearing of the picture. That looks like, okay, they're just tearing images apart, which at the beginning, of course, me and the kids, I felt, yeah, let me tear everything apart.
No.
No. So, but you see between having the white frank line like that and having it without, it changes completely the perception of the image. So that also was something extremely interesting. And actually on that, we haven't totally come yet to a kind of compromise on, yeah, exactly, on whether we like to have the white or not the white. So we're still in negotiation on.
No questions? Do you have any questions?
Streaming is on.
Fine.
One question.
One question?
You want a mic or something?
It's for Irina. Can you explain a little bit slowly how do you mix the kilograms with the photograph?
Hello, just trying this one. I think it works, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it works.
You have a question how I work with the chemograms?
How is the end process when you mix with the kilograms? It's like the end of the process when.
Yeah, it's mostly the end of the process. I mean, I consider the end of the process is probably the book because that's the final combination of everything. But yeah, the end of the image process is the chemograms because that's kind of where I ended. But again, it's kind of open-ended because some of the images I continue further in, animating them or intervening further. But yes, I don't know if that answers your question. So it's not a rule, but
No. Yes. But how do you do it? Is it when you work in the dark room, you develop the photograph, and then you start
yes.
with the
So it's probably better explained in a way that I do some partial processing, so
Yes.
partial development and partial fixing. And then I take it out and I continue to work outside, yes, with the sun, yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
No questions? Okay.
For Irina, again, I was quite interested in how you work with photographic paper and the inkjet printer as well. What do you do after you've printed on a piece of photographic paper?
So I basically the ink from the printer acts as a kind of a layer, a resist. So if you start putting things on it, like if you put too much, it starts like running and blending. So I try to preserve that to just preserve the image, but it also acts as a protectant from the sun. So that's why you can see that even though the paper changes the color, the image is still there. The partial image of the person is still there. But what's cool is that you really don't need to go to the darkroom. You just do it at home if you don't have an enlarger, you just do it at home. And then you start adding you start adding chemistry, and then you get these weird running effects. And you can add resist as well, like the olive oil or whatever you like to use, which also adds Actually, some of the images are they create this weird, because I don't do fixing, the sun changes it over time, and it also creates this shine, like a silver, which is why the silver gelatin print, right? So I highly encourage everyone to like experiment with that, because it's like a really unexpected effect from a paper.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting and accessible as well.
Yeah, you just do it at home.
Yes, thank you.
I have a question for my friends here. So I know that I was going to ask you if you guys were friends before, and you answered that question, but how did you decide to collaborate together, and not with someone else, besides just being friends?
I think it was because I am very much interested in photography because of different reasons, but also because of my background in fashion, as I said. And a long time ago, I went to the Art Festival. It was really a long time ago. And then, like 3 or 4 years ago, that you invited me to come, and invited me to come again to the Art Festival with her. And during this festival, as we were doing the festival together, and like seeing all these amazing things, and meeting a lot of people, and always talking about art and photography, and I came with the idea, what about like trying to do something together? And it was not from, I think this conversation lasted at least a year or two. And I think I was the one that had more reserves about it, because I didn't feel that I could do something that would, as you said, enlarge her work. And then, but she convinced me. And in fact, it was not the case that enlarged just her work, but also mine. But for me, the process of this idea of collaboration, I think it was longer than it was for you. I don't know. I don't want to speak at your place, but this was how I felt. That there was a bit of a resistance from my side.
You know, I love it because it's like in a love story. We have totally different version of what happened. It's perfect. So it means it's true love, right? So my explanation is completely different. My explanation is that we have this. I felt, so she's my friend for a while, that we have the same taste, and that I was kind of sure. And we both quite demanding, you know, we had like work like kind of artistic direction and so on. And for me, the end result is and I know there can be fights around that, about, you know, collaborating with people that have different tastes. And because for me, the end images is quite key. I felt we have the same kind of aesthetics, although our work are very different, you know, but like from, let's say, cultural background and what we like to see, and we had the same obsession and the same themes. So I was somehow quite confident about what would come out, and that we would not come into a fight, because you don't want to fight with your friend also around collaboration, you know, because that can happen too, right? So yeah.
It's just an interesting thought to me, because we have so many talented people here, and, you know, pretty much you can collaborate with anyone, but, you know, you have to think about how you choose that collaboration.
Yeah,
and so
question.
I don't know. Yeah. Any more questions? Is
Renata still there?
right? I wanted to see if she's still with us.
Yes, she's still there.
Okay. Does anyone have you have a question for Renata?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Renata. I just wondered if you use your work in a sort of educational context to, you know, for young people to, or anyone really, to learn more about plants and ecosystems in the places where you work.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, in fact, I do. And some of my projects, actually, I have specific educational and art kind of activities for children and adults to use. But also, when I have catalogs or information on and exhibitions, I also include information on the plants So people can learn, like, for example, what is this plant being used for, or what it used to be used for? Is it medicinal, or is it edible? And sometimes I also go and do workshops at schools, and those usually involve cyanotypes as well as my Biochrome process and learning, because what I learned, for example, from indigenous communities as well as from my research, I like to pass it on to my audiences.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more question? No? Okay, there is no more question.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.